The Gundiah Mackay Abduction. Amy Rylance, then 22, her husband Keith and her friend Petra were at the Rylances' home in Gundiah, Australia in October 2001. Petra was woken at 11:15 p.m. and went into the living room where she was horrified to find Amy being carried in a sleeping position out through the window on a beam of light to a huge ship outside. Petra woke Keith, but by the time he entered the room, Amy was gone. The curtain was torn, and bushes outside were burnt. The pair phoned the police, who struggled to take the claim seriously. However, around 90 minutes later, Keith received a phone call from a woman in Mackay, Queensland, an 8-hour drive from Gundiah. She said she was with Amy, who was in hospital, dazed and dehydrated. No one could explain how she had traveled such a distance in such a short time. Amy was uninjured except for red marks on her upper thighs and heels. She said she remembered lying on a bed with tall figures leaning over her, reassuring her and taking samples from her. When she was found, her body hair had grown considerably, suggesting she had been gone for much longer than the few short hours she was missing. The abduction of Jessie Long. Jessie Long was just 5 years old when he says he was abducted by aliens for the first time. He was exploring the woods with his brother when they came upon a round structure in a clearing. A tall figure appeared and paralyzed the boys. Jessie remembers being taken into the craft and placed on a cold table. He could feel the figures around him, poking and prodding his legs. Over the next few years, Jessie says he was abducted repeatedly. He claims he was experimented on, including having sperm extracted that was used to crossbreed with a female alien. In 1990, he says the aliens presented him with a baby, which they said was his. He also met 9 more of his hybrid children. Jessie, now 65, says he knows many people won't believe his story, but insists that he's telling the truth. The Barney and Betty Hill Case. Barney and Betty Hill were driving back from a holiday in Niagara Falls in September 1961. They noticed a light in the sky which got closer, eventually appearing as a huge shape hovering above their car. Barney got out and through his binoculars says he saw 11 humanoid figures in shiny black uniforms and capes, watching them. Terrified, the couple drove off. However, they both claimed to have experienced a buzzing sensation, and when they finally arrived home at dawn, the 4-hour journey had taken 7 hours. The Hills' clothes were torn in strange places, and Betty found a mysterious pink powder on her dress. She began having intense dreams about the experience in which skin samples were taken from her, and a needle thrust into her navel. Later, she drew a star map, which she said she had been shown by the aliens. Barney and Betty Hill were respected in their community. Barney was involved in the civil rights movement, and Betty was a social worker. No one had any reason to suspect they were lying. The Abduction of Antônio Boas. In October 1957, a Brazilian farmer named Antônio Boas saw a red star in the sky. The light got closer until Boas could make out a spaceship which landed on 3 long legs in his field. He tried to escape on his tractor, but was grabbed by small humanoids with blue eyes. Boas claimed he was taken aboard the ship and covered in gel-like substances. He was then forced to have intercourse with a female creature with bright red pubic hair so as to produce a human-alien hybrid to be raised by the aliens. Boas was eventually escorted from the ship and arrived back on Earth 4 hours later. He had burns on his body, nausea, lesions, and headaches, and a doctor diagnosed him as suffering from radiation sickness. Boas later trained to become a lawyer and stuck to his story his entire life. The Travis Walton UFO Incident. In November 1975, 6 forestry workers in Arizona reported seeing their colleague Travis Walton blasted through the air in a beam of light from a UFO above the trees. The workers reported Walton missing, and police suspected he had been murdered by the group who had disposed of his body. But 5 days later, Walton reappeared, claiming he had been abducted by aliens. He described waking on a table, surrounded by small figures in orange gowns. Their skin was smooth and chalky, and their bald heads were too large for their bodies. They had huge, shiny brown eyes. Walton escaped from the aliens and fled through the ship. He eventually met more humans on board, dressed in blue uniforms. They didn't speak to him but forced a gas mask onto his face so he lost consciousness. Walton claims the next thing he remembers was waking up, shaky and confused, on a roadside in Arizona. The attempted abduction of Colonel H.G.Shaw. This was one of the earliest reported alien encounters and was written up in the Stockton Evening Mail in 1896. Colonel H.G.Shaw was traveling with a companion by horse and carriage towards Lodi in California. Suddenly, their horses startled, and they saw 3 strange beings at the side of the road. The creatures were slender and humanoid in appearance, but 7 feet tall and bald, except for a velvet, soft gown that covered their bodies. They didn't speak, but warbled to one another as if they were chanting. They held lamps that shone unnaturally bright and seemed to be formed from some sort of glowing mineral. Shaw said the creatures possessed a strange and indescribable beauty. The aliens attempted to lift Shaw, and he felt they wanted to carry him away, but he was too heavy for them. Eventually they moved away, floating just above the ground. Shaw followed them until they reached a huge cigar-shaped spaceship in the air. The creatures flew up to it, disappearing inside a door. The ship departed and was soon lost from sight. The Hilary Porter Case. Hilary Porter, from Wales, claims to have been abducted by aliens countless of times throughout her life. At 5 years old, she remembers playing in the long grass behind her home. A reptilian alien appeared. It had scaly skin and black holes for a nose and mouth. It was 5 feet tall and exceptionally strong. It grabbed Hilary and carried her on to its disc-shaped ship. Porter was stripped and placed on a bed, then prodded with various instruments. At that point, she says she blacked out. Years later, while driving with her husband, she says their car suddenly pulled up at a garage and they had no memory of how they had got there. When she undressed later that day, she had a triangular red suction mark on her stomach. After all her abductions, Porter suffers piercing migraines, and she has sometimes woken with bruises, scratches, and even bloodstains on her clothes. Porter, who once worked at the Ministry of Defense, has made drawings based on memories of her alien encounters. She says the beings communicate with each other telepathically and had been sent to extract human genetic material on Earth. The Khoury Abductions. One night in February 1988, Peter Khoury was asleep in bed when he felt something grab him by the ankles. He experienced pins and needles run through his body and was paralyzed. He saw 3 beings around his bed. They were gold, with slits for mouths and large black eyes. Khoury said he was aware the creatures communicated with telepathy. They inserted a needle into Khoury's head, and he blacked out. Khoury's second alien encounter was more disturbing. During this one, female aliens with long, white, blonde hair came to his bed and engaged with him sexually. After the encounter, he found a long blonde hair tied around his genitals. Khoury claims that subsequent DNA analysis found the hair was biologically different to human hair, and he is certain his encounter was with extraterrestrial life forms. Hello everyone, this is Magnetar. Thank you for tuning in and joining me in the void. This video is a little different than my previous ones, as in it is a collection of true alien abduction stories, as opposed to fiction and creepypastas. Please, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Of course, I will never give up narrating incredible sci-fi stories. But I'm happy to present to you true stories like this one to give you the chills that you crave. And remember, astrophobes be warned.